We are live. Excited to have John Cardella today. He is CEO at RehvUp Technologies Inc. For the ones that want to get intimate here. John's got a cool background. He's been in software for quite a while, and it's not his first company. I'm not surprised by that. John, welcome to the pod. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and a bit more about RehvUp?
Hey, Charles, great to be here. Yeah, I sure can. So RehvUp is a younger company. We're about 2 years in, and it's a company that's really similar to you in a sense. We're really all about content creation and content delivery, and our aim is really to inspire and engage workers in mid-market organizations for better health, happiness, and productivity. That's what we do. That's our elevator pitch. There you go.
Love it.
Yeah.
What was your first company and how did you get to RehvUp? Because that was a long process. What did you learn in the journey?
Well, it's been a long journey. I think that, I've been giving this a lot of thought today, actually. I knew you were going to ask me something along these lines, and I don't want to kind of like bore the audience or anything, but I got to tell you that a lot of who I am and what I'm doing now stems from my origins. I was born in a little town in Sicily by the sea, right? My parents emigrated to Canada a long time ago. We landed in Halifax. Didn't speak a word of English, so I'm an immigrant, right?
Literally.
I'm an immigrant, and you learn the language, and I got here when I was 11 years old, and my summers were all about working in factories. I worked in a factory, basically stripping down alternators and starters, and just covered in grease from head to toe. And then another summer, I worked as a janitor, right? And what I learned in those grimy kind of like labor intensive jobs is that I really related with the working person, right? And I sense that working people sometimes don't get the respect that they deserve, right? I mean, as a janitor, they work hard, but yet people sometimes hardly acknowledge them, that they exist. And you know what I mean? And so, for me, I felt that I wanted to do something special, and I wanted to really get into a people-oriented environment. And so initially, the lion's share of my career has been in human resources, HR leadership. And I work for big companies like, TRW Corporation. I work for Hewlett Packard, Ceridian, and lots of computer-oriented companies, essentially. But for me, I think what's been important all the way has been the connection between the executive team, the objective of the company, and the workers. And I think that those origins of who I am have actually really shaped the way I think, my philosophies today, because I look at the world and I look at organizations and I look at what's been happening with the quiet quitting, the high levels of disengagement throughout North America. And, there is something really systemically wrong going on in a lot of organizations, in a lot of work cultures. And part of what I'm doing now is to try and address that, trying to deal with that in a positive way to enable workers to be happier and more productive for the companies. So we can get into that, like what I believe is going on.
Yeah. This podcast is so interesting to me because I get to learn about different perspective. And it's funny because I speak with a lot of leaders and they all see a fundamental problem because they have a foot on the ground. Me, I'm in Mexico and I live in my old world, so I don't realize these fundamental problems. For the janitor, I still remember my janitor. His name was Jacques when I was in primary school. And Jacques was very important for us because he kept the school clean, us little kids making a mess everywhere. And I'd love to hear you on the topic because just talking to you, I can feel your leadership, and I'd love to work for you if I would be in this non-entrepreneurial realm of things, and if I didn't have that in me. But how did you develop these skills? Is it something that takes time? Because me, I can show empathy as a leader. I am good on the IQ side of things and finding solutions to problems. So diminishing anyone that works with me stress. But I'm still not the leader I want to be. You know, I'm not super patient. How do you acquire that core in you?
I think leadership sometimes is like a good wine. You know, it takes time and experience for you to age and mature. I remember when I stepped into my first role as an HR manager many years ago, and I was just straight out of university, Charles, right? And for some reason, this CEO, like this is the company TRW, the CEO and the chief human resource officer and the plan manager, they decide to take a chance on me. And I'm thinking, wow, you know, I go from being a university student all of a sudden to being an HR manager. And my role there was, you're going to be hiring 300 people, and we want you, because I guess I impressed them during the interview, I don't know, but they wanted me to set up all the policies and practices, and they wanted me to do so away from their mother company. They were a company about 3,000 in Ontario, and they wanted me to set up different policies and practices to make people happier, to really drive a different kind of culture, right? And I got to tell you, it might have been the night before I had to start work or the few days before. I had to go into the public library and I had to look for a book, How to Be a Supervisor, right? What do supervisors do? You know, so I'm embarrassed to say that, but when you come out of school, they don't really teach you these skills, right? Right. And so essentially I did what I thought was best. And I basically put my creativity to work. I connected with the workforce, with all the workers. I started hiring people, and I started putting these policies in place. And long and behold, because TRW at that time had like hundreds and hundreds of plants right around the world. And when we started this plant, I never thought that we would be anything special, right? But what happened was that we became the pride of the corporation, right? And all the jets, you know, executives came in one day, and they basically just to look around and marvel about everything that was going on. And at that point, I'm thinking, okay, you know, like you can't, you know, companies can become great, but a lot of companies are saddled by their old policies and practices. They do things the same way, kind of thing. And so my thinking is always have to be bold. You always have to be kind of like looking around the corner for the next best thing that you can do. And if you as an executive don't do that, you're not doing your company or your people really any justice, right?
Right. Wow, what a story. So
Yeah.
I'll want to hear the next part of it, but before I do, from an external perspective, right? One human believed in you. So that's so important. You know,
Yes.
like me, I take a lot of shot on a lot of people. Might be my fault, but a lot of them disappoint me. So I think the second part to that equation, the why, is you need good cash to have these methods on. I mean, you might disprove me there, but happiness for most corporation is like, it falls in the innovation category. We're not too sure if it's going to pay off, is like
Yep.
taking a big risk. I've tried the happiness thing in my own companies. I've tried experimenting. I've tried being nice all the time. I guess it's just deploying more of these tests and seeing in my specific case what can work. But in your case, it seemed to have got a great result in that corporation. And I mean, what are the odds, right? 100 plants, and you were the one that were like, wow, that is working. What do you attribute to that success? What did you do there that might have yielded different experiment results than most experiments?
Yeah, great question. And I think it comes back fundamentally to what I believe is broken in the North American and I think European in many work cultures. Some companies get it and they do it right, Charles. Others don't, right? And what I'm talking about is that everyone has got to feel like they belong as part of that company, including that janitor, right? So, I mean, if that janitor is not part of the mission critical aspects of the organization, why hire them? Why would you? So if you're going to have an employee, you have to treat those people special, like they're part of your overall success of the company. And what's happened in a lot of organizations, and a lot of this happened, perhaps it was happening before the pandemic, but the pandemic really didn't help because a lot of companies were confused, and a lot of people became alienated. A lot of trust became broken. And yet you still have, CEOs that make, millions and millions of dollars, but some of their employees don't get treated the way that they ought to be treated. And I think that that's been a disconnect that's been exacerbated in the last little while. So what I believe in, I really believe that everyone has got to be made, to feel like not only they have a skin in the game, that they're a part of that company, but they have to be recognized and rewarded, as such, right? And if you're running a company, I mean, it's fine. Companies need to have market-based compensation. I get that. But at the same time, I believe that you have to have programs in place so that when the company wins, everybody wins. And I'm talking about things like you can do stock options, you can do profit sharing, these types of things, right? Which is what I did at that company called TRW and what I continue to do in companies that I work at, right? Because it should not just be the CEO and the executive teams that really become completely rewarded and recognized. Everyone has a role to play. And when you do that, that's called smart capitalism, right? Because what I'm getting at is when everybody wins, people pull together and they're going to work harder. You look at companies like Delta Airlines that have profit sharing in place, they continually outperform, a lot of other airlines, right? And you look at like Southwest Airlines, the same. They do great work with their people. And there's a company in Canada called PCL that's a lot of it is owned by employees, and it's a remarkable construction company. A great story to read. And so I think that, just to net it all out, I think that companies need to do more to really make people feel like they're part of its overall objective, its mission. And when you do that, and it starts at the top, people respond. People really do respond to that.
Does that still work in remote companies, or does that work more physically? Because me at this stage of my company, I've let go most of my workforces and I'm trusting robots to bring better results, and I'm really questioning the human model. And I used to be very bullish on that. I'm still bullish on very smart humans, almost at the co-founder level, or partners.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering nowadays, like what am I doing wrong, or if I should even give more attention to the HR model of things, which I used to be so bullish about. So is it because it's a remote company that I've been remote from day one? Is it the trust factor? Because I think I played my card right when, and that's not the right analogy, but I did invest in these humans. I did show them some heart. I did treat them right. So it's just like, what am I doing wrong here with, and should I place more tokens in the human equation of things?
Well, a lot depends on the nature of the work that you're doing. And it might be that the work that you're doing really lends itself more to, technology heavy, aspects rather than that human touch, right? But there are kind of like different types of businesses that are dependent on that human connectivity. And what I'm saying is that if you are dependent on that human connectivity, and if you don't do it right, you could be basically not basically, succeeding in the best possible way, right?
Right.
So
In my case, I have various quirks. I feel, or I think everyone should be entrepreneurs. I've been told so many times that this is not how it works. I treat people with that same intensity and that same respect also. I see various CEOs just treat humans like bots, which is why nowadays I'm mostly with bots. But and yeah, let's talk about that question, because I've seen the AI keyword in what you do. What's your take on AI and humans nowadays? How can both work together?
Well, both have to work together. Like I really still, I know the day will come when AI may start to think on its own, but it's going to be really humans that will have to continue to basically do the creative components of any aspect of work. And as an example, and there's a big role for AI to play. And AI, I know kind of like where you're going with this. It's going to disrupt a lot of stuff. There's no question about it, right? There's no question about it. But if we want to keep our humanity, right, we have to essentially have, governance in place, and we have to have parameters in place that basically really establish the rules of the game, right? You got to have the rules of the game, and we got to keep, AI somewhat in check to serve us and not the other way around, right? If you ever become subservient to your AI technologies, then Charles, you're going to be in trouble. That's all I can say.
Right. I guess like merging with the machine would eventually be a potential solution. Talking about that, you've been at the Collision conference not so long ago, Collision conference.
Yes.
Lots of people were talking about AI there. What's been your
Okay.
your feedback and your insights by going there?
Yeah, I mean, it was really, I did a few posts on there. Really frenetic energy. It was really, the energy was really frenetic, and you could see it in people, and you get the sense that something is changing, right? And everybody is thinking AI. No matter how many presentations I went to, there was a slice of AI, and I came away from there thinking, and RehvUp, we have RehvUp is really all about connectivity. It's about content. It's about, we create content, very short videos that we then program into companies, right? To inspire and incent and inspire and really engage people. And one of the ways in which we're looking to measure productivity is going to be through AI, right? And we're going to be employing AI in a really neat way, because as people create content on their own and post stuff, we're going to be looking at keywords that they're going to be using, and emotional expressions on their faces and whatnot. And we're going to use some algorithms from there to basically arrive at a productivity index or even a happiness index, depending what we want to do. And so, the reason why I mentioned that, we're basically having to rethink, and we're very early in the game, right? But every organization is going to have to do the same thing. And that's what Collision really basically was saying, is that no matter what business you're in, you better start thinking a little bit more outside the box and how you can incorporate components of AI into what you're doing. And the other thing that I learned was that if you're not using the word AI in your marketing, you're missing out on revenues.
Right. Well, the top folks, I think nowadays, the top companies, they actually stop talking about AI because all of a sudden it has become mainstream, which is interesting in the trend world in itself.
Yeah.
What about the Chat GPT, that could talk with my team, because first, I'm not always there as the CEO. So Chat GPT has a temporal thing. It's always there, always available.
Yep.
Could talk about my employees' feelings, again, the temporal aspect, emotions, they come and go. They need to be talked about and understood. It could give them tips also. Like, first, what about this? And second, I have a vision, and I wrote this on my LinkedIn the other day, that I think the future orgs, if you see it in the somewhat outdated pyramid concept, you would see a GPT between each step of the pyramid, from execs to, like, I don't want to call them grunt workers, but the base of the pyramid, and from the top execs to the lower execs, a GPT that could connect both, because I think there's like miscommunications between each layer of the pyramid. Do you also see that vision happening?
For sure, I see ChatGPT as enabling, much improved cross-functional and vertical communications. That I can definitely see. And the power of ChatGPT is pretty phenomenal. I mean, I wish I had it when I wrote my book. I didn't have to spend so many times editing it. It would have just boom, done. And so, but that's an example. Like I wrote a book, and it's Strategic People Leadership, by the way, and it's available on Amazon. But immense amount of time on my part in editing, and this is something that I hated doing. Right, I hated having to reread, rewrite, like scan, and then I also had to use a professional editor, and that cost money, right? And how simpler would it have been to just now have ChatGPT? If it was available 2 years ago, I would have used it. And so organizations are going to learn similar, similar productivity, AI-based productivity tools such as ChatGPT to basically facilitate and make the organizations more connected. In a way, that's what we're trying to do with RehvUp Technologies. We basically enable people to more closely connect with one another and to share their experiences with one another in a positive way to inspire them and to do more. So I really am a big believer that in productivity tools, and companies will use whatever will help them save money, right?
Right. Do you have a hard stop?
I don't have a hard stop. I mean, I can keep going.
Let's take a bit more time, 10 more minutes, talk about employee happiness, because we've gone in the AI realm quite quick. That's my fault, because that's my obsession nowadays. But I love the stats on your website. Maybe if I can read a couple of them. So employee and engagement trust in your workplace creates an increase in profitability by 23%. So this is just flabbergasting there. 50% increase in productivity in high trust workplace. So another like flabbergasting stat, and 76% increase in employee engagement in high trust workplace. So that's from Gallup and HBR. There's a huge cost to having unhappy employees. Can you touch as per why are folks unhappy at their workplace and what that can cost to business and how to potentially fix that?
Yeah, I think that the root of unhappiness can stem from a number of different factors, but I would say that one of the top one, which we can use as an example, Charles, is their immediate supervisor, right? So if there's a company that doesn't have good management in place, as an example, a manager that is always kind of like pessimistic or always negative is going to really influence all the people that report to him and more, right? So you want to have good leaders, number one, in an organization, because when a supervisor or a manager is positive and engaged, then your employees will likely be the same. And if they're not, then you're going to have poor employees. And so Gallup has basically said, using some of their stats, that in North America, as an example, like only 34% of companies are truly engaged. So let me put this to you and to some of your audience. So when they also say that a disengaged employee, so if you're not engaged, you are costing your company 40% of your payroll. That is crazy expensive, right? So it's important to really engage workers so that you maximize your productivity, right? So, and that's kind of like the business that we're in right now with RehvUp, trying to connect people, engage people, inspire people to basically become happier and produce more. Because again, in most organizations, you may not know it, but 50% of those employees are in fact not happy, So a lot of people are not happy these days.
Right. And why? Like what is engagement? And how can I know as an employer? I mean, I can see the stats. I can see that this person's definitely a lower performer than their peers. But how do I make them engage? Is it about giving them a role that is aligned with their skill sets and their values? Like, how do I make that happen?
Yeah, again, it comes back down to the supervisor just having a sit down talk with people, understanding, who they are and what do they need for them to do a great job. Simply asking them, like, how can I help you to be the best that you can at what you're doing here so that you can be happy? And just doing that on an ongoing basis. Every week have a sit down meeting with people and just doing that every week, a 5-minute session, 5-10 minute session. I'm telling you, that will kind of like build engagement like nothing before. And the key to that is that, again, you're establishing a relationship between, the employee and the supervisor. And that's paramount because, you've heard the old adage that, employees don't leave companies, they leave supervisors. And I found that in my experience and throughout my companies to be, quite true.
Right. And yeah, once you have implemented these meetings, what if someone is just not telling you that they're not happy because they're scared that I don't know, you'll let them go or whatever? Like, you just look at the stats, and if that person is just not being productive for themselves, you eventually let them go?
Yes. Yes. It's as simple as that. I mean, it's not saying that they're a bad employee, but you might have someone that's just a bad fit for your organization. And I mean, you can tell that if they don't socialize with other coworkers, right? If they don't get along with other coworkers, or if they're always kind of like negative, if they're not kind of like responding well to direction, then you've got to do something about it, because otherwise, they're going to essentially affect the morale of the entire team. So every organization is going to have a bad apple or two, right? And as part of your leadership responsibilities is to make sure that you deal with that. And if they're not really performing, you basically do what you can to turn things around. But if they're not want to be turned around, then you turn them around and I hate to say that, but you show them the door, right?
There you go. For this year, what are your next priorities? What do you want to accomplish in these next 5 months?
Well, in the next 5 months, what we want to do is we want to land. We're working on some major deals right now. So we need to land a couple of those key deals that will be game changers for our company. We also, once we have a good line into some of those deals, we want to do a Series A. We are a young organization, so it's kind of like having the money to basically continue to develop and augment RehvUp. RehvUp it's an amazing platform right now that we have. We want to do the version with really truly enhanced AI on it that really takes us above all these other so-called employee engagement platforms, right? Because we believe that we've got something unique, something that they don't have. We are a pure play. We are a pure play employee engagement platform. And we really want to do heavy marketing, and we want to hit the ground running in terms of our sales and our technology. That's kind of like where we're at.
Love it, John. Where can people find out more about you and RehvUp?
Well, if they can spell it right, they can go on our website, and it's REHV. The H in the REV stands for happiness, by the way. So it's REHVUP, RehvUp.io.